Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on the health effects of some of the pollutants in the air that causes illnesses. Let's start with carbon monoxide, which is something that is produced by our cars and also our industries. Now, what happens when carbon dioxide impairs our health? Normally, this will reduce our blood's ability to transport oxygen, which is crucial for our health. Then people will suffer headaches, fatigue, and very low levels of this. But in the long term, in acute, more critical, long-term chronic exposure, you will have major health impairments that could cause serious problems. Another pollutant in the air is ozone, which is naturally formed by the atmosphere, but is considered a secondary pollutant if it's formed by the atmosphere. We'll see also later on that it's also formed by volatile organic compounds. In its gaseous form, it can irritate our eyes, it can also irritate our respiratory tract, it can produce chest discomfort, aggravate our respiratory conditions, and in the long term will produce things like asthma and bronchitis. Alright, let's move to water. Why is it important to know water as an earth system? Well, for many reasons. Obviously, if we want to discuss water, we can't just simply talk about water as a physical system, but we need to also understand the actual interaction between the socioeconomic development of this system, our health system, and also how all these things interplay for our survival. So, as an earth system, we need to understand that water is a very important prioritized system, resource that we need to pretty much take care of. So to do that, normally what we do is that we need to understand exactly how this system operates. Most of you are probably familiar with the water cycle, how water is passed on from the clouds into the ground and so forth. And so the interaction of all these systems will need to be understood from how we study it. How do we analyze this? How do we move from the atmosphere into the ground, and how this water is recycled? So all these systems will have implications for not only our society, but in the way in which we live. So everybody knows why water is important. Life on this planet could not be possible without water. We also know that 90% of water is salt water, as we just discussed, and we cannot really be taken by plants and organisms. So even though we have less than 1% of fresh water, we need to also understand that it's unevenly distributed. It's not found readily all over this planet. So we have serious regional local problems with water distribution. So it's important that we understand these differences so that we can manage water more properly. The big question with water is, are we going to have enough usable water in the near future? Well, we know that fresh water as such is an irreplaceable resource that at the moment we're not really managing properly. And this is in the context of understanding that most of the Earth's salt water is salt water. And so water as a problem constitutes a global issue. Everybody on this planet has problems with water, but it's also an economic issue that we need to understand. It also affects particularly what we call vulnerable populations, women and children in less developed countries. And it will impose, as it goes, something that we call national and global security issue. And this is what a lot of alarmists think will start many wars in the future and so forth. So it is both a social and an environmental issue. So understanding and these differences and studying those differences will help us to manage it. So most of the Earth's water is not available to us because it's trapped either in the ice caps or in areas where it's very, very difficult to get to. And so understanding these interactions, researching more about how all these things come into play will be very important to understand this irreplaceable source. Let's move into soil. What do we need to know about soil? How important is soil? Well, it's a dynamic ecosystem that also has inputs, outputs, storage and flows, and constitute most of the solid ground in which the air and water moves, but also in which water is cycled, and also is the actual place where our plants can grow and obtain their primary nutrients. So the quality of the soil is very important, and this influences the productivity, the primary productivity in a particular area. So life is constituted by very important biochemical cycles: water cycle, carbon cycle, sulfur cycle, and the nitrogen phosphorus cycle. So these cycles are important to understand. For instance, the resource of water, the changes that occur in our climate, and also the types of minerals and waterways that we have for our living organisms. But also it's the place in which the atmosphere, the terrestrial and the marine ecosystems interact. So this is the end of this portion of our discussion. We'll come back to you and we'll continue our next discussion on consumerism, population issues. Now that we know a little bit about these earth systems, then let's talk a little bit about the problems that come out of actually utilizing and not protecting a lot of these systems. Thank you for watching.